Hello, and welcome to Age-Wise Health. I'm your host, Maggie Jess, Director of Nursing at AmeriStaff Nursing Services. On today's show, Aging in Place, we have three panel guests here to talk about GetSetUp. Today, I'm joined by Lawrence Kosick, Judy Stelling, and Wade Yarborough. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi.
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 So
Great to be here.
With you, Lawrence. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started with GetSetUp.
I'd love to, Maggie, and thank you for having us today. So my name is Lawrence, and I'm one of the co-founders of GetSetUp. We started the business a little over 4.5 years ago with the mission of helping older adults learn the things they needed to learn to live happy, healthy, more connected lives. And we're very pleased that Michigan was one of our very first partners, Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. So I'm very excited to be here today talking to you and with my two wonderful colleagues, Judy and Wade.
Oh, that's so wonderful. Great. Yeah, this is a wonderful program. The more I read about it, the more excited I got about our show today, because putting the word of mouth out there for everyone is huge. So I'm very excited to hear what you all have to say today. Judy, if you could be next for me, kind of a short introduction about yourself and how you got started with GetSetUp.
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Judy Stelling, and I'm the Senior Director of Product at GetSetUp. I actually got started at GetSetUp 4.5 years ago about. I joined as one of their very first guides or instructors on GetSetUp. And subsequent to that, I've just kind of grown in responsibilities and with the company to the extent that today, and Maggie, I was so glad to hear that you're excited about the program, because that's what I do, help bring all the content and the instructors to the platform so that we can expose people in Michigan. And by the way, I am a Michigan native and just came back from Petoskey. But anyways, excited to be here. Thank you.
Wonderful. And last but not least, Wade.
Hi. Thanks for having us. It's great to be here. I also started about 4 years ago with GetSetUp as a guide, and I'm still a guide. I still teach regularly. My background and passion has always been teaching. I've taught at university level. I have a doctorate in psychology, and was excited to find this platform. And so I still am an instructor, a guide, but I also help Judy with some of the administration of the programs, working with the other guides and things like that, as well as teaching.
Wonderful. Wow. Well, as a fellow Michigander, we're very lucky to have this program and all three of you to help support it. Thank you so much. So, Lawrence, as one of the co-founders, I know that the older population has inspired you throughout your youth and today. What was this early inspiration, and how did it kind of grow the mission and, your founding of GetSetUp?
Oh, so it's a really great question, Maggie. So my early inspiration, although I didn't realize it at the time, is when I was a kid in elementary school, my father was a co-founder of a nonprofit senior living facility. And so after school and on weekends, he would actually take me to visit the facility, and I would get to have these wonderful conversations with older adults. And two things occurred to me. One, I thought, wow, they're so fun and so interesting and so smart. Like there was this wisdom. And the other thought that occurred to me was they seemed a little lonely. And I felt like, at the time I didn't really know how to process it all because I was a younger kid, but I just felt like there was something there. And then as you fast forward to my adult life, and now I have an older adult father for whom, I try to, oftentimes be tech support, and I'm not very good tech support. But I try to help him do some of the things that he wants to go do to live a happy, healthy, more independent life. And so it's come full circle because he inspired me at an early age to do what I'm now doing. We're doing together at GetSetUp to help older adults, learn the things they need to learn to live happy, healthy, and be more empowered. to do many of the things that they want, can, and need to do.
Yeah. And having that knowledge is key because it can kind of make your life a little bit easier at times once you learn it.
Sure can.
Yeah. So, Lawrence, tell me, what were some of your initial challenges for launching GetSetUp?
Oh, there were many. And Judy knows because she was with us at the beginning. And the challenge was, if you're going to be a online platform, a virtual platform, how do you make it as easy and as approachable and as interesting as you can for an audience who may not be digitally native? Some are, but some are not. So, how to design that sort of experience, how to make it feel welcoming, how to make it feel like less threatening, not intimidating, and what kind of programming to offer. And so, as the name would suggest, we started with basic tech, like getting them set up on whatever basic smart device they had so they could get online and get into their first Zoom class. So that could have been teaching them about their iPhone, Android, an old laptop, a tablet, whatever it is they had. How could we make it comfortable and interesting and engaging enough to get them into their first class and then keep them? Like, what did they want to learn? And when they took 5 classes in 10 classes, what were the other additional things that they wanted to learn? And so we struggled, but figured it out. And when in doubt, we asked the learners, what do you need to learn? What would you like to learn? What use cases are you trying to solve for? And Judy and team did a wonderful job of building curriculum and programming that was both essential but fun and entertaining.
Oh, that's got to make it a lot easier. But yeah, I can see how that would be quite the challenge. Definitely. So with a lot of virtual, and that kind of started a couple of years ago for us, how do you guys create that sense of belonging and that sense of community in something that can kind of seem isolated or, virtual? We have a relationship, you and I are talking right now, but it's nothing like sitting next to someone, having lunch with them, something like that.
Well, I'll take the first part of that, and I'm sure Judy and Wade have opinions on that as well. I think one of the things that we did that was different from anybody else is we decided to take the approach of reskilling and upskilling older adults, folks like us. I'll consider myself one as well. We would reskill them, and they would be the guides or the teachers. And the magic that occurred there is when you have somebody that's a similar, like a peer-to-peer, somebody who's a similar age, perhaps empathy, patience level, similar cadence, you feel a little more comfortable because you're learning from somebody who's just like you. So perhaps it's, if Lawrence can learn it, I can learn it too. And I think that what that did was it made people feel comfortable, non-threatened, less hesitant about learning something new and turning on their camera and perhaps asking their first question. Because once you can get folks to do that, they start to connect with other people, they start to become friends with other people, they come back and take the classes together, and you start to have that sort of very community that we're trying to create.
They go outside of their comfort zone.
Indeed.
I was going to say also what has happened in that peer-to-peer learning model is that as the people come in and they join it, it's a safe environment for them. They're not embarrassed to ask a question. Maybe they don't understand technology and they feel kind of intimidated by it. But because they're in an environment with other peers, people like themselves, and an instructor or guide, as we call them, who is in the same demographic, there's a sense of comfort and safety. Like, okay, I can say I don't get it, or I need to take this 5 times, and we don't care. We let them, repeat a session as many times as you would like, and nobody feels intimidated by it. So it's a safe, comfortable, relatable type of environment.
Wonderful. So you guys are very involved, and it sounds like anyone who signs up for this program has to be very engaged. I
mean, I think that they they can progress at their own level. I think we really try to welcome everybody, but some people may show up a little nervous and a little hesitant. Like, what is this? I heard about it, perhaps on TV. Maybe it's a program like this. Maybe it's on the radio. Maybe they read about it. Maybe they heard about it from a friend. They're a little uncertain as to what it is and what we do. And sometimes they might be a little nervous at first, but we quickly make them as comfortable as we can. We try to be very, very welcoming. We all come through the door that way. But we find that we meet a lot of other really wonderful people just like us who are thinking about the same things and wanting to learn together, so that we see over time, if we do our job, they learn what they want, what they need to learn, but they make friends and they become part of the community, and we see sort of engagement grow and increase over time. And we think that's a really wonderful outcome.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's wonderful. So Lawrence, I just have one more question for you. Where do you see GetSetUp in the future? What do you see it expanding to? What are your ambitions and goals for GetSetUp?
Oh, it's a really good question, Maggie. I think we continue to think about ways to provide more programming that can be of more use to more older adults. So I'm really talking about how do we scale what it is that we're already doing. So do we need to add more programming in certain categories to be helpful? Do we need to add more languages? Do we need to offer more features and functionality, special guests? What is the type of programming that is most useful, and how do we offer that? Maybe a lot of it we can produce on our own. Maybe in the future we go out and we get more partners and guest speakers to make that more interesting and even more compelling. We think about all of those things as we look forward, but the mission remains the same: how to make it as comfortable as we can to welcome as many older adults onto the platform so they can learn whatever it is they want and need to learn.
Wonderful. That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Lawrence. So, Judy, we talked a little bit about engagement, I think about 2 questions ago. But with you being a part of workforce development, what are some initiatives you guys are taking to keep everyone engaged and keep everything meaningful to the older person?
Well, I think first off, when you talk about workforce development in particular, older people staying in the workforce longer or coming back to the workforce after retiring is a very common thing in a growing sense of the workforce, a growing part of the workforce. And so what we do is we offer a lot of different type of programming to help them, for example, maybe transition from a lifetime career that they had to do something that they're passionate about. A good example of that might be even some of our own guides. One of our guides is from Michigan. She was a nurse in her professional life. She stopped that profession, but still wanted to work and do something. So she came on GetSetUp, and she now teaches health-related classes on our platform to educate other people on chronic illnesses or, how to stay healthy eating. And what that is, that's an example of how we help them, analyze their skills, their background, and how can you take those skills and then transfer them into a need that's in the workplace today. So we help people first off by giving them the skills that they need, helping them get the digital and the soft skills that they need in today's workforce, whether that's learning about, Google or Microsoft Office or whatever tools that are out there. And then we also help them in the job search to identify their own internal skills. What did they do in the past? How can you transfer that? And then also help them when it's time to actually apply for that job, how to create a resume for today's workplace, how to interview successfully. So the whole gambit of helping people, one, realize that there are opportunities out there for them, and then how can you transition from what you did in the past to maybe a new career today.
Wow, that is awesome. Especially because, you're finding that specific niche for someone and then focusing on now, how can you go help others? How can you still give back to something, but not, work in, like you said, for example, a nursing capacity?
Right.
Very cool. With all of the initiatives you have and everything like that, are there any specific classes or programs that really resonate with the older adult that you find that are more successful than others?
Gosh, we have such a wide variety of programming now on our platform, and everybody is different. So you have to have that thing that attracts the attention of somebody who, you know, uh, is concerned about their physical fitness or their balance, for example. Maybe they want to take an online learning class on improving flexibility and balance. Then you have another person who uh, wants to delve into a little bit of creativity, and maybe they want to take an art class on watercolor or something else. And then we always at the background have the digital learning and the technology type of classes, trying to keep our community abreast of current technology, new things that are happening. For example, in January, we launched a whole series about scams and frauds, because the older population is a big target for bad actors out there. And we really wanted to make sure that we were helping increase awareness of those type of things. We've launched programming on artificial intelligence because it's a hot button today, and they need to know about it and understand how it's going to affect their lives. New technology for staying safe in the home, access to things like services that can help people age in place, whether it's using ride share services or grocery delivery. So we really have a whole gambit of programming, Maggie. So it's hard to say what is the most important, but we find technology, fitness, health and wellness, and creativity are all categories that resonate.
Mhm. And Judy, I'm really glad that you brought that up about the digital literacy and being safe, because I think that is someone's worry always. I worry about that with my parents. I worry about that with myself.
Yep.
Getting scammed on an email. You never know who you're really talking to.
You don't.
And I think that it can really resonate with an older person and being very scared to kind of delve into this world. Do you see that at all?
Oh, absolutely. I think what we see, Maggie, I'm going to step back for a second. When we teach these classes about scams and fraud, whether it's, phishing or voice scams or email tricks that people can play, in each of our sessions, we usually have somebody perhaps who has maybe been a victim of that. And what comes when you're a victim is a sense of embarrassment. Maybe you don't want to tell anybody, you're afraid. But what we find in our classes, because of the relatability and the comfort of it, people come, they increase their awareness, they learn how to respond. What do you do if you were affected by one of these scams? What is the course of action you should take? And the more and more that we increase the awareness of people and let them know of the type of activities that are occurring in the world today, the better off they are. And one of our guides says something I think is really relevant. He says, whenever I'm in the class, I'm talking about the scams, I try to stress to people to react and think with your head instead of your heart, because so many of these scams really do go to the heart, whether it's a grandparent scam and they hear a voice of their grandchild in desperate need or whatever. The older population is a little bit more vulnerable and responds to those type of things. So we're trying to increase the awareness and teach people how to respond.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And that kind of goes into my next question, which is actually for Wade. So, Wade, you had mentioned you have a background in psychology and technology. So, what are some psychological barriers that you've noticed when these older adults are engaging in all of this new technology?
But there's a lot of psychological barriers. They didn't grow up with technology like the kids today did, so there's a lot of intimidation there. It's not something they have a history with, so that's one of the concerns. And also, they may have tried to get help from someone else, and it's typically a kid or a grandkid, and that doesn't work out very well. So I think the intimidation is probably the biggest issue there. They're really not comfortable with it, and they're not sure where to go to learn how to use it. So a lot of cases just never end up using it.
Okay. And I've noticed now, when I go to the hospital, they want you to enroll ahead of time. They want you to update your insurance card ahead of time. And I thought to myself, how is my father going to do that? I don't even know if he has an email. He is 68 years old right now, just got an iPhone for the first time. So what would that look like for him? So with some of your background, Wade, in healthcare IT, how do you see GetSetUp empowering the older adult moving forward?
Yeah, just to expand on what you're saying, I think that people have tried to stay away from technology, but more and more you can't function in society today very well unless you have certainly the basic level of skills. And as Lawrence said, that was kind of the foundation of Get Set Up, that trying to get people engaged with technology so they can do things they have to do now, like signing up for their healthcare and other things. So what we're trying to do is to create a way for them to learn those skills. And as we mentioned multiple times, but I think it's critical, is they need to have a safe environment. They don't really want to take classes from someone that's in their 30s or have their kids teach them. And being able to take classes with other people that are older adults and have the instructor be an older adult, examples that the guides use are things they would understand. Whereas typically if they're taking a class from someone that's 30 years old, they're going to be using examples of things they didn't grow up with, they're not familiar with. So creating that safe environment so they'll get in and get started is a key factor.
Absolutely. And then on the other end of that, how do you guys, or you, Wade, as a guide, I should say, get over that troubleshooting or, oh, it froze. What do I do? And I could see some older adults getting frustrated. Like, I just don't want to do this anymore. How do you guys kind of overcome that? How do you support it? How do you navigate through the platform and then also keep, the psychological piece, keep them at bay, keep them still wanting and engaged?
Yeah, in our classes, what we try to do, and especially with technology, is older adults like to see it. They want examples. They don't want a lot of concepts. So we actually spend a lot of time showing them. So if I'm teaching an iPhone class, I display my iPhone on the screen so they can see what I'm doing, and I'll show them how to do something. And lots of times they've got their iPhones out and they're following along. I'll do something and then they'll try it and they'll say, "I don't see that," or "It didn't do that for me." And so in the class, they can get some feedback in terms of what's going on. And one thing that's nice for the class is because a lot of people are comfortable doing that. They like to ask questions in class, but a lot of people don't. But by sitting there in the class and hearing other people's questions, they can get their questions answered. So it's a nice give and take there in terms of being able to learn. But I think that hands-on part is critical, where they can actually see it being used and then practice it themselves.
Wonderful. Okay, great. And Wade, finally, what advice would you give to an older adult who's hesitant about starting the Get Set Up program or just reaching out to see what you have to offer?
I think the smart thing to do is to start with some technology or something you're already using. Almost everybody's got a smartphone. They may be using only 10% of the capabilities there, but they at least have a smartphone, or they're using some other technology. So take classes where there's at least something you have some comfort level with, and learn how to do more things with your smartphone. And that tends to build the confidence. So, oh, I learned this. And so then maybe they'll reach out and try something else and they'll learn that. So, and I see that a lot in the learners, that they start out very intimidated and they start saying, "Oh, I've learned this, and I took a class on something else from you, and now I'm starting to learn that." So they'll feel comfortable branching out and maybe learning Alexa or learning artificial intelligence. So I think that's a key part of it. And one other thing I do want to mention, kind of related to this question and the last question, is in terms of troubleshooting, is one other thing we do that I think is really helpful is we have what's called office hours. So, and office hours are kind of like in college. So if someone does take a class and they've seen how to do something, they watch me demonstrate it, but they try it at home and they can't get it to work, or they think of something else they would like to do related to that, they can come to an office hours class. And that's purely question and answer class, where they can just ask questions, and the guide will help them with things that from the class they took.
Oh, that's wonderful. And it's all in real time.
Yes. So.
Oh, that's so great. That's really nice. Well, I'd like to thank all three of you today for meeting with me and letting our community know what you have to offer. Get Set Up sounds like a wonderful program, especially for our state of Michigan. I am so excited to start promoting this everywhere. We will have all of your links available at the end of the show. Thank you all for joining us today in our show, Aging in Place. Thank you to the whole team at Get Set Up for providing all of this wonderful information that is provided to our older adults in Michigan. If you have any questions about today's show, please don't hesitate to call us at 248-288-2270. Stay safe and healthy.